right, we are recording. So, three, two, one.
All right, we don't have any viewers yet because we are brand new, but my name is Daine. I'm going to be Tater of the Meat-N-Tater show, and this is Max, and he's Meat, so it might be weird to call another man Meat, but here we are.
Not
so
weird for us, Dane.
we're going to talk about, we're doing Tinfoil Tuesday, and we're going to talk about conspiracy theories on Tinfoil Tuesday, and today we were going to try to talk about Plandemic, but looks like there's a conspiracy theory around the conspiracy theory of Plandemic because it's nowhere to be found right now. So Max and I just tried to find it to do a little to get a little resources, few resources going here. But Max, you tried to find it, and what happened?
Yeah, I even went on a little nifty tool called archive.org where you can basically see a snapshot of the internet from any point in time since the internet's inception. I think you can go back pretty far and look at stuff, and I can't find it. Can't find anything. It looks like the website was only online for just a week, from May 5th to May 13th. So 8-9 days, and can't find it anymore. Can't see any of the videos. Like, that's a ton of censorship for something that is not true. If you go look at YouTube for flat Earth, let's just see what pops up. YouTube flat Earth, and there's all these videos for flat Earth, and these don't look like they're being censored.
Well, it's because the Earth is flat. So why would you say?
Obviously, yeah. We want to make sure we're disseminating true information on flat Earth stuff.
Exactly. So I mean, you look out at the horizon; it's flat. Like, it's not round.
Dane, we're gonna have to talk about this off air, but
No, that's why we're here. Tinfoil Tuesday. That's why we're here to talk about it. So Plandemic, obviously, I'm assuming there may be some people that don't know what that is. It is a video put together of a lady who did some research, and Judy Mitzkevitz, I think is her name, and she kind of came out and made a bunch of statements about what's going on in the current COVID-19 pandemic, and made a lot of statements about how this is all generated to kind of take control of humanity. At least that's my understanding of it. I didn't get to actually view the resources because they were all deleted before I got to them. But Max, you can help me out and fill in some blanks there.
Well, Plandemic is the name of the documentary that is coming out, and the video that is put everybody in an uproar is an excerpt from the documentary. And basically, it's one of the interviews by, they were interviewing a doctor named Judy Mikovits,
Mm-hmm.
and she made a lot of claims that a lot of the science community has, it was basically an uproar. A lot of people went against what she was saying, but on the flip side, in the documentary, in the video that the guy showed, there's a lot of doctors or what appear to be people in the science community that are also supporting her. So, it could be one of those things. Maybe there's a grain of truth to it. Who knows?
Yeah, I wasn't really that intrigued by it until I couldn't find anything on it, until even the website was taken down, and I thought, okay, I've read some of the debunking information and looked into that, and I hadn't really had many conversations about it, but I thought it was really interesting that I could find a lot of debunking information, but I couldn't find the original source to even make my own opinion about it. So that's really interesting to me because, I mean, if you can't find it on the internet, then that's pretty intense.
We went through great lengths to silence this lady.
Exactly. Now, I understand not wanting to cause fear and panic and put people in a situation where they cause more harm than good, but silencing something that seems like freedom of speech is pretty intense. So one of the interesting things I did see, I didn't click on any of the links when they were posted, but it took over all of my news feeds for about 2 days, and it was the word sheeple might have been thrown around here or there. you might have seen some people say, I'm not going to make an opinion on this or not, but maybe you can watch this and just think for yourself. Think for yourself was a common phrase that popped up. And it's like, well, I kind of was doing that beforehand,
Or
but
so
maybe
I thought.
some people weren't. Yeah. So I don't know. So did you get a chance to watch any of it? The trailer?
I did watch it, and I shared it with a couple of people to see what they thought, and then I read. I tried to do my best to read both sides of the story. Some people that feel like they're debunking it, and then some people that feel like they're supporting it. And man, I don't know, honestly. There's so many good points on both sides that have no rebuttal to either one. And so, yeah, man, I don't know.
And that's where I think conspiracy theories really can grab a hold and take off in society, is because you don't have all the answers. Um, Kurt Cobain being killed by Courtney Love, like, we don't have all the answers. We just know that people saw Kurt alive and well, and the next time they found him, he was shot and he was dead. JFK, you don't have all the answers. People can't plug and play when it comes to 1 + 1 = 2, and people just make up their own minds about everything. And so when you have a gap in knowledge, you have a gap in information, then people will try to fill that themselves. And I think later on we'll talk a little bit about the psychology behind conspiracy theories. I did listen to a podcast that covered that a little bit. I thought it was really interesting. So we can talk about that at the end. But yeah, I've got a list of debunking topics here, so we can maybe kind of reverse engineer some of the things that might have been in the video, if you kind of want to.
I will do my best to give you the fair commentary on all of those and let our many, many listeners, figure out what they think.
Yes, our sea of millions will be able to chime in.
Right, exactly.
Tell us where we're wrong and tell us where their conspiracy theories.
Exactly. Let's do it.
So I'll just pick these at random. I don't know if there's any particular order from the video or not, but I'll just start right here. That let's see, I don't want to misstate the person's name. Judy Mikovits stated there is no vaccine for any RNA virus that works, and so the debunking article says here that is incorrect, because polio, hepatitis A, and the measles are a few RNA viruses where vaccines work. So do you remember anything from that clip that addressed that particular?
So I'm going to start out with, she makes a lot of claims and provides very little evidence for many of her claims. So that being said, there are, like you said, there are plenty of vaccines that handle RNA viruses, and this is neither here nor there. She didn't say these things, but the flu is also an RNA virus, and it doesn't. We have vaccines for it that don't work, and so I think that's probably what she was alluding to, but not what she said. So I'm kind of reading into what she said and trying to figure out what she meant. But in something that's like a documentary, you would think that people would be very intentional about what they say. So she probably should have said something that's a little bit different in the way that she meant things. So that's kind of my stance. I think there's something more to what she meant there, that there are vaccines for things that don't work, but we still have to take them. And she's probably just speaking out of turn, talking about them being RNA virus vaccines.
Well, now when it comes to the flu, there are as I understand it, I'm not a disease expert by any means, but even some strands of the flu, if your vaccine's going to cover so many different types or different strands of the flu, and when you get sick, that as it's been explained to me, is that you're getting just a different strand of the flu, an evolved form of it, not so much what you got vaccinated for. So maybe your body's fighting off or is able to resist a certain strand here or there. And so every year they make a different concoction to try to, hit the most likely for that year based on research and evidence and that kind of thing. So yeah. I definitely see an argument for the flu being an RNA virus that does not have an actual vaccine for full prevention, but there's also there's a little more to it than that, because the flu does have so many different strands that they try to attack from different angles every year.
Yeah, I mean, whenever people talk about like the measles vaccine or the polio vaccine, it keeps you from getting that. I know you're talking about different strains, like maybe they guessed the strain incorrectly, or I mean, they're not just guessing; they're making very educated guess. I don't want this to be in any way saying, "Oh, we don't trust doctors." We trust doctors.
Yes.
Um, it's just that some of it is guessing. You make the best guess you can, then sometimes you're not right. But people feel like whenever they get vaccinated for something, that it should keep them from getting sick. And if you get a flu vaccine and you still end up with the flu, a lot of those people are probably thinking, "Why did I get the flu vaccine? And what are they really putting into my body?" And that's where all these conspiracy
Right.
theories.
Right. Exactly. There's a gap. There's a gap in information, right? That's kind of the thing that I mentioned earlier, that when there's a gap in information, there's a gap in knowledge that people feel will automatically just fill the gap with whatever they can to be able to cope with the situation. Okay, let's try another one unless you got something else on that one.
No, that's pretty well sums up how I feel about that one.
Okay, so this might be one of the more buzzworthy things that keeps popping up. I've actually heard this from people in real life, not just in like online discussion things. So I've had people mention something along these lines, that in the Plandemic clip, Judy states that this virus is not naturally occurring and suggests that it was purposely created in a lab. So this article has a link to nature.com that will basically kind of debunk that and conclude that SARS-CoV-9 or COVID-2 is not a purposely manipulated virus. So there's something out there now. I don't know how to speak towards all of these links and all of these sources. I'm hoping that because they're used in a debunking article that they are trustworthy themselves. So this being created in a lab, what do you think about that? When you hear somebody say, this virus is just created in a lab, what comes to your mind?
It's really interesting that you brought up the whole credibility of the article thing, because a lot of people crap all over nature.com because they don't think it's a credible source. And now it's being cited probably by a doctor that it is a credible source. So the credibility of the source here is suspect at best. Um, that being said, uh, if this was a man-made virus, like I think the death rate would probably be a lot higher. So I don't think it would just be cleaning out old people and people with uh, the it's the people that are being affected most are people that have the pre-existing conditions. I don't think it would just be targeting those people. I think it'd be like Thanos snapping his fingers, basically,
Right.
just left and right. People would be dropping. So that's my evidence to me that it's not man-made. It's not efficient enough, I guess. Now, people could be saying, well, maybe they're just trying to, I don't know, get rid of the people they feel like are burdening the system or something like that. And then that's a whole nother uh, eugenics conspiracy theory that, that's the next episode, guys. We're going to talk about that another time.
We will definitely get to eugenics. I've got a lot of fun to share about that.
How do you feel about that, though, Daine? What's your stance there?
On eugenics?
No, not eugenics.
Oh,
On
okay.
how do you feel? Do you feel like this is something that has been targeting people? Is this
something I do kind of ascribe to is that it's pretty well documented and reported that we keep certain diseases kind of on file, as it were, to make sure that we can stay up to date on if we need to manufacture a vaccine in case of a breakout. But I've never trusted the government 100% with everything, so I don't think that those files are always kept with the best of intentions or used with the best of intentions. I use file like metaphorically to talk about diseases, because I don't even really know the proper terminology to what they store, how they store it, and all that good stuff. But so I kind of hold a little bit of space right there to where I'm saying it could be possible. It could be possible. Now to borrow from some of the more racist things I've heard about it is like, well, hey, it's made in China. It's not gonna last long anyway. Just borrowing from someone else, that's not my particular
Those
standpoint.
are the taters, guys. Those are the
taters.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big Idaho spud right there. So anyway, reuse that joke if you want, but I'd be careful where you use it. So
I'm Asian, so I get to use that freely.
right. So if Max gets the say so on all the Asian jokes, but I think it could be possible. Honestly, like I don't think that this one in particular is, because I think what you're saying, it's very inefficient. It's very for the most part, it doesn't seem to be taking a huge toll on the majority of any population. Now, don't get me wrong, it's taking a huge toll on certain populations, especially in New York, Virginia, Wuhan. It started off pretty strong in Wuhan. So I'm not taking away from that, but at the same time, I can't fully put all my eggs in the basket of, yes, this thing has been manufactured and been purposely spread, because why would they pick something that they don't know what the mortality rate's going to be when they have other things that have proven to have worse mortality rates?
Yeah.
So I can't quite jump in there with Judy on it being manufactured in a lab. Has it been worked on in a lab? Probably. Especially at this point, it's been worked on in a lab.
Yeah, exactly.
Has COVID 1 through 18 been worked on in a lab? Absolutely. I definitely have. But I like I said, I can't buy into that this one was created in the lab and sent out into the world to do harm. So
I think we pretty well agree there.
yeah. Let's see, something that I might be able to actually talk about, because some of these things I'm like, I can't even give an opinion because it seems a little above my head. Okay, so incorrect diagnostics. So there's no evidence to support the idea that physicians are incorrectly diagnosing COVID-19 due to financial incentive. That's a pretty heavy statement to make right there. So what do you think about that?
There's no direct correlation. What's this? Read the statement again to me one more time.
Sure. There is no evidence to support the idea that physicians are incorrectly diagnosing COVID-19 due to financial incentive. So I'm kind of going backwards on that and thinking that Judy said in the video that, hey, doctors are going to get a kickback from every time they diagnose a patient with COVID-19.
So the doctors themselves are not incentivized. So the funding for this, how the hospitals and all of the centers that are taking care of COVID patients, they have to be accepting Medicare payments, or you have to know a little bit about billing or how the medical billing side works. So basically, not every hospital is allowed to take Medicare patients. You have to be accredited a certain way. You have to have all these letters somewhere. Somebody has to have these credentials to say, okay, we can accept Medicare payments. And if you can't accept Medicare payments and you're taking COVID patients, then for every COVID patient that you check off somewhere on a box, you get $13,000. The hospital or that center, whoever's caring for that patient, receives $13,000. If that patient goes on a ventilator, then that hospital receives $39,000. So there is money that's being shipped or passed out basically for diagnoses of COVID and for treating COVID. And so the fact that that statement says there is no evidence is blatantly wrong. There is evidence, but I feel like probably what the subject matter that they're talking about is maybe more about the incentivization, like maybe doctors. I don't know. It's a really unclear statement. I'm trying to kind of read between the lines again, and so
I could read you some more if you want. There's a little bit more here to the debunking statement that might help trim it down a bit. So Medicare sometimes bundles payments for some conditions. If you have a heart attack, Medicare can pay X amount of dollars for your treatments. Possible hospitals could get paid $13,000 for your COVID-19 admission. So you said that. Let's see, trying to get past that. The fact that the average cost of a hospital admission for a respiratory condition is $13,297. So basically, what she's saying is like that $13,000 you brought up is kind of an average thing anyway. So it's not like there's a special incentive for COVID-19. Like the hospital is going to accrue that much cost for someone who breaks a leg.
So right, and so the theory was that let's say somebody died of a broken leg, that some doctors are being pressured. Well, could it have been COVID related? If so, go ahead and check the COVID box so that maybe that three, four, $5,000 broken leg with the COVID box now brings in $13,000. So that's kind
Right.
of what people are feeling about it. And this is one that I feel like is probably a strong point for the whole conspiracy theory. Is I'm a proponent of following the money, and there's a lot of money to be passed out for the COVID stuff. So, and
Right.
they're rethinking how to pass out money right now. So I think people are trying to grab at what's available right now.
Yeah. And you know, the thing about medicine in Western society, especially American culture, is that that's what it's all about. It's all about dollar bills. Like, don't get me wrong, there are, you know, there are lots of physicians or a lot of people in the medical field that they're not in it for the money. They're in it to truly take care of people and to take care of the sick and to, you know, help those who are dying die well. So I'm not taking away from that by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, we have lawsuits against Purdue Pharma. You know, you have all this stuff connected in, you know, throughout the nation of people abusing the system when it comes to medicine and to caring for people. I mean, speaking from, you know, a personal anecdote is you know, my wife was given ibuprofen, like 800 milligram, which you can get 200 milligram tablets over the counter. So you take 4 of those, you got 800 milligrams. My wife was charged $22 for one after she had our daughter a few years ago. So $22 for one ibuprofen, that's pretty outrageous. So
Or like,
I definitely agree when it comes to the money aspect. Now, as far as the direct incentive, that's where I am going to say that I disagree, because I think who's going to see that incentive? Well, I want to backtrack a little bit. The medical community is so broad that it's hard to just say doctors get kickback. So the waters get muddy when you just use a general term like doctors. So are we talking about a doctor who's working in the lab to work towards the vaccine? Are we talking about, like you say, a hospital administrator who is handling the financials of the hospital? Like, where, if there is pressure coming from a certain direction, where is it coming from? And I had the hardest time buying into it, mostly because of how many doctors are dying because of being exposed to it and being, you know, they're treating the patients, and they're dying because they're exhausted, their immune system's down, and they contract it. So that one's a little interesting to me, just to kind of follow that train of thought, because again, I agree with you when it comes to the money, because money's there and money drives the worst of intentions. But to just blanket statement and say doctors, that's where it knocks the legs out from under that one for me, because you need to be more specific about who you're talking about.
who's
Because you can convince me that somebody's taking a bribe to get that extra $30,000, $40,000, but you're not going to convince me if you just say, "Oh, the doctor's doing it." No. Like, there are some doctors that are genuinely trying to care for people. So you can't just draw the line and generalize everybody.
well, yeah, and on top of that, most doctors at hospitals are salaried anyways. They're not going to get, they don't have performance bonuses. Like, if I put so many people on a ventilator, I get extra money back. That would be
Right.
unethical, and Hippocratic oath, all that stuff kind of
Right.
prevents doctors from doing that.
Yeah. What does kind of lend to your argument a little bit is that there was a press conference. And I'm trying to find it and I can't find it, but was a press conference, and I probably shouldn't bring it up since I can't give a name. But this person, the press conference was asked, are all of the COVID-19 deaths um, directly related to the disease? And in the interview, the lady never said yes, but she also never said no. And it was very confusing. And it's like, okay, well, if you can't give a definitive answer, then people are chalking up a car accident with a positive tested COVID-19 on this person. If they're chalking that up to a COVID-19 death, then now I'm really like, okay, don't pull my strings that much towards a certain. because that's very dishonest. So it's unethical in another way. So maybe even if they aren't
San
money,
Diego, was that the San Diego County one?
I think so. I'm scrolling down. It's been a while since I had this notification, so I'm trying to find it. But
there was a press conference like that today. I think it was in San Diego County where the I don't know what his county commissioner or something like that.
okay,
He said that there's statistically the stats say that there's 194 COVID-19 deaths, but I know for a fact that only 6 of them are true or something like that.
interesting.
Like he dropped some huge bomb in a public space that we're chalking up all these deaths and there's no need to. We're putting all these fear in people that don't need to be afraid or not as afraid as they are, kind of thing. So I mean, a lot of words flying around right now that kind of give a little bit of life to this conspiracy theory. Maybe it's not such a conspiracy.
Right. Yeah. And the more time goes on, the less answers we have. I think it's going to continue to give life to it, which is where, if there's more information that can be shared, not for debunking purposes, but just for straight facts for the general public,
Yeah.
it really needs to come out now, because even if you don't have a complete story, you need to tell the story as it is so far. Even if it means you have to backtrack and say, yeah, we probably chalked up a few of these that weren't right, but hey, we want to clear the air and say these for sure directly related to COVID-19. These were positively tested COVID-19 patients that died from other complications or other whatever.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I read somebody else make this point. This virus, like we're learning a lot about it right now because it's like we've never seen it in people before. So there are a lot of answers or there's a lot of places where doctors just don't have answers, and so that's why they can't give us answers. But people feel like, oh, they're withholding information. Well, they can't withhold information they don't know, and it's better to wait and speak from a place of knowledge instead of speculate and then give people incorrect information and cause all kinds of mayhem and then have to backtrack and all that stuff. So I think the approaches that they're taking right now are probably the best approach.
Yes, and so this is where I'll dip a little bit more into the psychology of conspiracy theory. And there are, I will try. I will give credit to a lady named Malika Cox. That's who I got the information from, listening to a podcast with her and a gentleman named Jonathan Martin. They just kind of talked about a little bit more on a religious faith aspect of this, kind of as they went into their particular conversation. But I've researched this a little bit, just not a ton, but a little bit, to kind of see what other claims were. So I've looked up psychologists and psychiatrists to kind of see if there's any truth to their claims. And one of the things which I did confirm on a light level, I did confirm these 3 particular points. One of the first things she brought up is the reason why people want to fill the gaps when there's a lack of information is that people want to find control. Like it's part of human nature to control as much as possible in whatever situation you're in. And so you see cartoonish versions of that with, we call them sociopaths, CEOs that just, are type A, and we have all these other words for them. It's just people who've done a really good job of just taking the gaps in their life and filling it with information that's gotten into a certain point. And so that's also where the other end of the spectrum on the cartoon scale is your conspiracy theories. Like people just say, there's got to be an answer for this. It's got to be there somehow. So that must mean that there's a race of lizard people trying to take over the world, right? And then so like you have your cartoon versions that go either way, where it's like, okay, people can find a way to be productive with this, but then we also have a way where people can be destructive with this. And I think that's exactly what's happening right now, is that we have so little information that's trickled down to the general public. Again, not because I think it's being withheld intentionally to hurt us, but because there's so much that we don't know, that people are trying to take control themselves.
I think it's probably Bat people in this situation. Batman, Batwoman,
Batgirl.
Yeah, Batgirl. See, there's way more truth to those DC comics, man.
Right. We let them stick around for too long, and that's the real cause.
Yeah, they saw Marvel coming. Marvel was taking over, and PC said, "Nuh-uh, Batman."
That's right. We're taking back over.
Now,
we're taking back over with COVID-19.
Oh man, I don't know. That's not good.
Yeah. So control is one of the first thing that they mentioned. The other thing was certainty. So as humans, especially humans in Western society, we don't like getting too far away from certainty. Like we'll probably talk about this particular topic in other episodes in other situations when we're not doing Tinfoil Tuesdays. This topic of certainty will definitely come up, especially when we hit on like religious topics or political topics, because we just do not want to have the tension of not knowing the answer or not knowing what the next step is. And personally, I definitely feel this one the most because I just had a conversation 30 minutes ago with my wife and said, what if we treat this situation like chess and we think of all of the possible scenarios and we come up with a solution for all of those possible scenarios? And her answer to me was, that's impossible. And in my mind, I was like, it's not possible if I just start doing it. And then I was like, no, I'm already falling into that gap. I just need to let the tension be there because I don't have to be certain. And then if I try to create certainty, I'm probably going to create lies and I'm going to create conspiracy theories and I'm going to create false narratives that are going to drive wedges more than they actually create solutions.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think they call that talking out of your butt. Don't do that, Daine. Yeah, don't do that.
But yeah, well, that definitely happens.
To your point about the uncertainty, and like that's when people kind of start to turn to religion to explain things and to kind of maintain that control. And then there's a analogous movement to turn to conspiracy theories. Yeah. I subscribe to the fact that people just don't want to be uncomfortable. That's the number one thing that motivates human behavior. And so if somebody is uncomfortable, they're going to find whatever they can do to become comfortable again. And if uncertainty is making you uncomfortable, then whatever explanation that comes their way that has some inkling, some sliver of explaining what it is that's making them uncomfortable, and it relieves that tension for them, they'll hold on to it. And then, if they start getting into the whole confirmation bias, like, well, I read this article and it totally confirmed the whole conspiracy theory for me. So tinfoil hats for everyone. Yeah, exactly. Totally there with you. We're not very good at this arguing thing today.
Well, if you can go the other direction too, it's because you can also say, well, this is completely debunked it, and then you take away fair criticism. You take away fair criticism of how everything's being handled and so on and so forth. So yeah, you're right. We're not doing a very good job of disagreeing.
We're supposed to be arguing. We're not supposed to be agreeing the whole time.
Yeah. So, well,
our listeners.
Yeah. So if you came here for any sort of debate, which is what we're going to probably advertise our podcast to be patient with us as we try to find ways to disagree with each other.
Not how we normally are. We normally argue about everything.
Right,
I don't know why
exactly.
all of a sudden we agree on everything.
Maybe we should just do all of our podcasts through a Facebook chat. We should just record our Facebook chat.
It is, yeah.
Problem
solved.
Yeah. So the last thing that they brought up, so they talked about control, wanting a sense of control, having a deep desire for, like you basically kind of piggybacking on what you said, so much desire for comfort that you have to create certainty to have comfort. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I mean, there are a lot of, very, ingenious things that have happened in our society. Like people they didn't like the idea of dying of diphtheria on the Oregon Trail every day. So they decided to train the automobile and all those kinds of things. And it makes sense to some degree. But
you've died of dysentery.
Do what?
You've died of dysentery.
Yeah. Did I say diphtheria? I meant dysentery. Oh, I messed up. Dang it.
That's all right. I got your back.
Yeah, appreciate it. So the last thing they mentioned was ego, or a desire to be an authority in the matter. So this one I found to be most intriguing because I don't think it has to be a conspiracy theory for people to fill that gap, because everybody wants to be the authority. In the age of information, the internet age, people just want to be like, they want to be the person that's like, hey, I'm going to go ask so-and-so because they always seem to know what's going on in this situation. They always seem to be, up on the latest trend in this particular topic. I'm going to go ask them. And I think most people want to be that person to a degree. Maybe not to the same degree as everybody else or in all the hot topics, but I mean, I can't tell you the last time that I've been able to have a conversation with somebody without at least a little bit of, actually, it's not that way. It may just be the people I work with, maybe the people I have in my life, but I rarely have an occasion where it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then it just stops right there.
Well, actually, here's this and this reason why you're wrong.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know.
So the ego, pretty dangerous thing in the conspiracy theory world. I mean, that's why you have like Alex Jones and David Icke and these guys that just rise to the top and get so much control and create so much certainty, is because they've found a platform on which they can really, really feed their ego. So.
Right on. Is that all the points that from that post, the post that you were reading?
Yeah.
Okay. So where do you land on this subject, Daine? Tater? Give us the meat.
When it comes to, are you asking when it comes to COVID-19, like in connection to the 3 points I brought up? To Plandemic, I think it's a lot of reaching for certainty. If I had to give it like a main qualification for the 3 things I brought up, I think it's just a desire to create certainty in a time of fear. And one of the things I've heard referenced a lot of times is that we're going through a societal grieving process. Some people are accepting of the circumstances, and some people are in denial. Some people are angry. Some people are depressed. Like we're really in just like this really big hodgepodge of coping with societal loss. And so that's created a huge desire for certainty, because then people, once they have certainty, then they can go for control and they can feed their ego, and it becomes a huge cycle. So Plandemic, in my mind, I'm going to say that it's just going to be a big conspiracy theory with just enough truth and just enough interesting aha facts that's going to keep you into the conspiracy theory. But at the end of the day, it's not going to carry any weight. 5 years from now, people probably won't talk about Plandemic. Might be talking about pandemic, but not the Plandemic. But I will say that I'm going to hold out a caveat for the fact that you can't find it anywhere. That one's going to hold me.
Suppressed.
It's going to say again.
It was so well suppressed.
Yes, it's so well suppressed that yeah. I mean, you have people on Twitter snagging screenshots of tweets that are deleted 20 seconds after they're sent. Like, how has somebody not gotten a copy of this whole first part and not like continued to pump it out on the internet? So.
Well, that was one of the things. They had a place where you could download the video. It said, because we keep getting taken down or something to that effect, go here to download the video and keep spreading the truth kind of thing. So they were working on it before they took everything down.
Yeah.
Somebody, like you said, somebody's got it. Like, in that 20 seconds or whatever, the 7 days that it was up, somebody's got that video.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, somewhere in there's a grain of truth somewhere. I don't think that she made everything up. I don't think that she's a total quack. I do know that she's looked at like an expert. Maybe there are some things that she's an expert on, but a lot of the things that she was talking about, like she mentioned some study that she's published in, and on that study, she's the completely last author. So in the research world, when you're the last author on something, generally you're more like an analyst. Not really. So the first name is the guy that contributed like most of everything. Like, it's his idea. He structured the research. He implemented all the methodology. He oversaw all of the data collection and analysis and all that stuff. Like, that's his job. And the last person is usually like the person that filled out the boxes and collected the data and all that stuff. So she's that person. She's the last person. I'm not saying that she's not an expert. She's got doctor in front of her name. she's got PhD at the end of her name. She studied a lot of stuff, but I don't know. I feel like if they wanted to put legs under the assumption that this is all pandemic, they would have talked to the guy whose name was on there first, and for whatever reason they didn't. So,
Yeah.
but somewhere in there, there's those grains of truth, and I don't know. I think we will see this later. Somebody's gonna be like, "Remember when they talked about that in that Plandemic? It's all real." And
Right.
it's gonna rear its ugly head again, then, and it's gonna have to go through another phase of debunking.
Right.
That's what we'll see.
Well, that does happen. I mean, with social media, it's so easy to repost an article from years ago that has been completely undone or corrected, and the people just like buy into it. Or I mean, even if it's not like old, people can post an article on satire, and they think it's real.
All those memes talking about cashier says, "Here's your change, it's 2020, or your total is 2020," and then people are gonna think that's the
PTSD moment.
Yeah.
Exactly. PTSD moment for 2020. Yeah. So So only time will tell. We'll come back if a part 2 gets released. I mean, this is definitely a topic we come back to. But for now, I think it's just everybody's grabbing for a security blanket at some, just trying to find something to hold on to, and then honestly, I don't want to leave this too. It's kind of dangling out there in front of me, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because I think it's interesting. Most of the people that I saw that ascribed to it were religiously minded people. So I don't know what that does for the pandemic folks, but or I don't know what it does for the religious folks. But I do think that there's a very interesting connection between the many people that were like, "Hey, there might be some pretty good stuff here," and the people that are also like, "Hey, we love Jesus too."
Oh goodness, that's like you said, that's another episode right there. We'll have to talk about it next time.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. I am Tater.
And I'm Meat.
We'll see you next time.
Take care. I'm just going to stop the recording now.